Hello and welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman, and today I'm going to be sharing with you week number 46 of my 52-week series of Scrappy Blocks. Today's block is the sailboat. It is the month of July, and what better way to celebrate July than to be out on the water? So I was thinking about being on the lake or maybe even on a river, but the sailboat is a wonderful way to celebrate summer. So I wanted to make sure that I included this block in our 52-week series. Now don't forget there is a PDF that is attached below in the description box. You want to grab that. It gives you the written instructions, but of course you can just follow along in the video to see how to put the block together. It gives you the requirements for your blocks and our squares for the block. On the back, I always like to give you just an idea of a quilt that you can make. And this week I'm putting together a quilt where it's using this week's block, the sailboat, as well as next week's block. So you won't learn that block until next week. But it is the Starlight block. And here is a close-up of it. Just a fun little quilt. I think it would be a great quilt just for the cabin. If you happen to have a cabin, be a great quilt in children's themes for baby quilts or toddler quilts. Just so much that you can do with this. So let's find out how we put this together. So here I'm going to show you what you need for squares to put the block together. And of course, be sure to download the PDF. And for those of you who might be new to my channel, if you have not watched my video, which teaches you how to get your scrap stash cut, sorted, organized, and ready to go, I'm going to link below a video, the tutorial video on how to go about doing that so you can get your entire scrap stash ready to go to make beautiful quilts. I'll also link the book sets that I have to my website. So all of that will be down below. Just make sure that you check the description box. Now let's take a look at what we need for this block. And of course, I always give you the instructions here. But we're going to have some half square triangles in this block. Let me move this down a little bit. As you can see here, the half square triangles make the sails and then the sides of the boat here. So for the half square triangles, we need to pull larger squares. And I have pulled 2 gray. I have pulled 3 light, or this will be for the sky, and then 1 of the red. And those are going to be used to create these 6 half square triangle units. I've also pulled 4 of the dark 3, those were all 4 inches, by the way. These are all 3 inches, and I've got 4 of the blue for the water. I have 2 for the boat, the center of the boat, and I have 4 for the sky. So that's what I've pulled. I think this would be really fun too if you made this really, really scrappy so that all of the lights were just plain lights of any color. And maybe the boat was a multicolor and the sails were multicolor and the water was multicolor. That would be a lot of fun too. But if you like to have more control over your scraps, then this is a way that you could go as well. In my scrap stash, I had enough of all of these colors to be able to put this block together. So now let's put this, put the different units together. We're going to start with the half square triangles. All right, I've laid aside all of the 3.5 inch squares, and I think I mistakenly mentioned 3 inch squares earlier. These will finish at 3 in the block, but you need to pull 3.5 inch squares, so my apologies for that. I'll lay those aside for a minute, and I'm going to take the red and the 2 gray squares that measure 4 inches, and I'm going to take the 3 sky or the light squares that also measure 4 inches, and I'm going to make my half square triangles with these. I'm simply, and you've seen this many, many times on many of my videos that I've given to you. This is how I make my half square triangles using my Speedy Solutions scrap stash. So I have paired them together, right sides together, and I am simply going to draw a diagonal line from one corner to the other on all 3 of these squares. Then I'm going to take these pairs to my sewing machine. I am going to sew down one side of all of these. I'll do it in assembly line fashion. I'll sew down one side a scant 1/4 inch away from the diagonal line, and I'll come all the way back, sewing a scant 1/4 inch from the diagonal line. And then I'm going to cut on the diagonal line, and then they're going to be squared up to 3.5 inches so they'll match these, and pressed, and I'll probably press mine to the dark. So let me go ahead and take this to my machine and I'll get these stitched. So I have these three units all stitched together. They're pairs, and it's kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can get them close enough so you can kind of see the line and the stitching. I do try to sew a scant 1/4 inch on each side. When I cut them apart, I do, and you've seen this before as well, I like to cut from stitching line to stitching line. That gets rid of the dog ears right there. And then here, stitching line to stitching line, stitching line to stitching line. And basically, let me show you a close-up of that. So the dog ears have been removed from that, and then I'm going to simply cut them apart. And I'm just using a scissors right now. You can certainly use your rotary cutter and ruler to cut on the drawn line. But then for every one of these squares, you are getting a set of half square triangles. So here are the two ends of the boat. If I can get it in here. There you go. So now I'm going to take these and get them squared up. They have to all be squared up to 3.5 inches. That is really important. If you don't square these up, nothing is going to go together well in your block, and it's going to be so very frustrating. Each and every unit within your block must be the exact measurement that it's supposed to be, and in this case they should be 3.5 inches squared. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to cut these apart, and then I'm going to square them all up. I like to use, I love to use a rotary mat that rotates. This is very helpful. If you have one of those, definitely use that. I'm also going to use the trimmer that I like to use is trimmer A of the Clearly Perfect Slotted Trimmer. This is the 1/2 inch increments here. And I'm going to line up the 3.5 inch stitching line on the ruler to the 3.5 inch stitching line on the half square triangle unit. I'm going to get rid of this excess. It isn't a whole lot, but that's very important that that gets removed. And then I am going to press mine to the dark. So I'm going to do that with all of my half square triangle units, and I'll be right back. What I'm doing now is simply laying out the block in front of me. Definitely follow the guide there on your PDF. It will show you row by row how you should lay everything out. I'm just taking all of my parts and pieces and laying them down. Here's the water now. I'm putting the water down here. All right, now my block is laid out, ready for me to put it together, and I am simply going to web it. You've seen me do this as well. I love to web my blocks. I have them laying next to me on my table, and I web them 2 rows together, and then the 3rd row and the 4th row, etc. I even do it with quilt blocks from my design wall. I web them together as well. But I simply start up in the left corner, take the second one here, place it on top, take it to my sewing machine, stitch, and then come back and get these two and continue stitching all the way down. I don't break the threads. I continue stitching all the way down. And then I'll bring this back to the tabletop, and it will have been secured together. It's webbed together, and the 2 rows are. And then I can start on this one, and I'll continue adding these, and then I'll continue adding the last of them. And I'll go ahead and show that in fast motion as I'm stitching here. Here's the second sailboat block that I've just finished. Make sure that you square each of your blocks for this sampler quilt up to 12.5 inches, so they're all squared up to 12.5 inches. And it's a beautiful block. I just love this block. I've always enjoyed seeing sailboat blocks and different type boat blocks. You can make, actually, you could make your sailboat to have one sail here if you choose to. This could be an entirely gray square, and then these two could be half square triangles. So whatever you choose to do. But I really enjoyed making it. I hope that you did too. Don't forget to grab the PDF that's in the description box below. That will give you the information. And I look forward to next week when I share with you the Starlight block. And then you can put together an adorable sailboat and starlight quilt for your cabin, for your home, for some children, whatever you'd like to do with it. So thank you so much for joining me this week. Please post pictures of your blocks out on my Facebook group page. It's Quilting with Lori, and then find the group Scrap Up Your Stash. Love to see all of the quilts that you're working on. And until next time, happy quilting.